The Institute of Education Sciences is the research, evaluation, and statistics arm of the U.S. Department of Education. IES supports research that addresses important issues in education and develops solutions that improve school readiness and education outcomes for all students.
When we initiated our research program, it was around the central question of, does early algebra matter? In other words, would an authentic approach to algebraic concepts and practices in elementary grades improve children's algebra readiness for middle grades and ultimately their success in algebra in middle school and high school? In that sense, our first challenge was to actually develop an intervention because in our view, there really didn't exist a curriculum in place that would help us effectively and adequately measure the impact of early algebra. We were not just looking for typical content in elementary grades, but we really were trying to take a long view of what it is we would need to do in order to prepare students for future success in algebra, a subject that's notoriously been a gatekeeper in school mathematics. In that sense, our work is relevant to future study, but it's also grounded in elementary grades. I would say it's pretty ambitious in terms of our treatment of algebraic concepts and practices. One example of that is the role of variable notation and how we use that to help kids develop a way to represent their algebraic ideas or the generalizations they make. But at the same time, it's ambitious. It also attends deeply to helping students make sense of ideas, not just sort of rotely learn them, but to dig into them and try to understand them through investigative activity. So the intervention consists of 18 one-hour lessons at each grade level that are taught throughout the year. A lesson will have a Jumpstart in it, and the Jumpstart allows teachers to review concepts that are addressed in previous lessons, but also it can prime students thinking for the lesson at hand. After the Jumpstart, students do a small group investigation, and then that's followed by a whole class discussion where they're asked to share their findings. And finally, a lesson will conclude with what we describe as a review and discuss segment, where teachers might review the main ideas, but they also can formatively assess students' thinking. A key point about the intervention is that it's really designed to develop rich mathematical conversations around algebraic thinking. And so that involves teachers in a very important role of questioning students' thinking, while the role of students is to share their thinking both orally and in writing, and through sharing their thinking to discuss one another's ideas and critique them, evaluate them, and build on that thinking as a class. The lessons are developed in a spiral fashion so that a student is not expected to master an idea in a particular lesson, but that student over time has the opportunity to revisit ideas, to refine their thinking, using more sophisticated strategies and representations that they learn across grades. When we compared the overall performance of treatment and control students in schools that had the lowest SES, we found a considerable effect at grade 3. And treatment students not only maintained that advantage from grade 3, but they actually build on it in grades 4 and 5. And finally, it's worth mentioning that those particular schools, had very high percentages of persons of color, in excess of 90%. So we were very excited about those results. So there are several significant points, we think, in our findings. First of all, it bears repeating that elementary grade students, even in at-risk settings, can engage successfully with a comprehensive treatment of algebraic ideas, and instruction around those ideas does improve their readiness for algebra in middle grades. Because fidelity of implementation matters, we have to think carefully about how we support teachers so that they're able to build classrooms that foster rich algebraic thinking. We need to continue to challenge the culture of elementary grades so that not just algebra, but math in general is on equal footing with literacy. And this includes helping elementary teachers to not fear algebra, but to understand how the arithmetic that they're teaching today aligns with the algebra that students will one day study. So our next steps are threefold and are currently the focus of ongoing projects. Our first is to take our grades 3 through 5 intervention and to extend that into elementary grades K through 2. And so our goal is to have a full, comprehensive approach to teaching and learning algebra across elementary grades. Our second is to build a more inclusive intervention by focusing on struggling learners and those students in at-risk settings. So for us, this includes examining a couple of things. First of all, how do struggling learners, including those who have learning differences or learning disabilities, how do they make sense of the algebraic ideas in our intervention, and what strategies might we use that would support their learning? The other is for us to design a more culturally responsive intervention that really can tap into the funds of knowledge that children bring to the classroom and can improve their algebraic understanding by engaging them in that sense. Our third task right now is to build models of instruction around effective teaching that we've seen in our intervention as a way to not only inform teacher professional development, but also to impact and improve the fidelity of implementation.
The Institute of Education Sciences' priority is research that contributes to improved education outcomes for all students. We fund research on new, practical, and innovative approaches that can help teachers and students successfully meet 21st century challenges.